It's Thursday, October the 22nd. Welcome to Up to the Minute. I'm Todd Duplantis. We are glad to have you with us, joining us on this Thursday morning. Can you believe it? We've almost made it through another week. Brittany Pacheco joining us from her home studio. It's Thursday, Brittany. The weekend is almost upon us.
I know it's only day 4 of the hostage situation, Todd, but you know what? One more day. We're gonna make it. It's gonna be fine. This weekend's actually very special for me, but I won't say until tomorrow. So
Okay.
I just want to welcome everyone to this morning's episode. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to join us for our daily Up to the Minute. I do want to remind everyone to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and don't forget about our YouTube situation. Situation being, we need you to subscribe and to hit that notification bell so you can be the first to find out the latest uploads from us. And last but not least, you can help us grow our audience by hitting that share button at the bottom of this podcast so that it appears in your personal news feed. That way we can just share this information and maybe, get a few more followers, Todd.
Hopefully so, with that YouTube situation we have going on right now. Brittany, we know Thursday is always your favorite day, or one of your favorite days, next to Friday, because
it is our virtual family fun day. We are very, very excited to welcome our guest from the Children's Museum of Houston.
That's right. Dr. Cheryl McCallum joins us. She's the Director of Education. Good morning, Dr. McCallum.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on your show today.
Absolutely. We're going to talk more with you about the Children's Museum of Houston and your offerings you have available for students, for families, and for kids all around. So stick around for that. Thank you for being here. We're going to move on to our first guest. It's Ruth Dunn. Now, Ruth is a faculty member of HCC Sociology Division. And just yesterday, she was a panelist on a very important discussion we had on our website. It was the Journey to Today, 100 Years of Women's Right to Vote. Thank you for being here, Ruth. I'm going to unmute your mic there. Let's see. Can you get it?
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. So first, tell me about this panel you were on yesterday, because we've had several guests who were panelists, and also Helen Graham was on our show just earlier last week. So tell us how it turned out yesterday.
I think it was great. I think that it was set up beautifully. There didn't seem to be any hitches at all in the broadcast, but I think the questions that we had to answer and the format was excellent. It made us think. Even though we knew what the general format was, there were questions that came in that a couple of them were just really, really difficult to answer because of the historical background and everything else. But it was fun and interesting.
And focusing on women's rights to vote, that was when Helen Graham brought up a very good point. It wasn't all women at first who were allowed to vote, correct?
No, not at all. It was only, for the most part, upper middle class white women, and only white women, and mostly upper middle class. Because, if you don't have property, if
Right.
that gets hairy back in the 1800s and beyond that, and it's still hairy in some parts of the world today. But it is one of the conclusions that we came to was that a lot of the early women's movement, even up until the 1970s, 80s, 90s, there's a lot of racism involved there. So that women of color are largely left out. People of color are largely left out. They feel like they are not, their issues have not been addressed. And I think it was very, very important to discuss that, because I think it is something that outside of history and sociology that we don't discuss enough. I think that we're in a state in the United States where we have got to start dealing with these issues up front. And they are painful, and particularly for white people are often offended by the idea that they could in some way be racist, or that they have some kind of racist tendencies. So it becomes very difficult to talk. I'm white, so it becomes very difficult to talk to people about that, because there is this block that we put up. I can possibly be, but we live in a racist society and we have to deal with that.
But Ruth, we've got to have the discussions. I mean, the
Absolutely.
discussions have to be there, and formats and platforms like what you guys had yesterday are perfect for at least launching the discussion to make people think about things.
Yep. Yep. I think we need to do a whole lot more of that too.
I want to move on talking about the sociology program. How did you get your start in sociology at HCC?
I got hired as an adjunct like everybody else. I don't know anybody that started out full-time, just right off the bat. I was an adjunct for 7 years. I thought I was going to die an adjunct, but that was 15 years ago when I got hired full-time. So I got hired there primarily because I was hired as an adjunct, but I was hired as an adjunct because part of my degree plan, my master's degree plan, had to do with teaching sociology. And so I was an intern to Dr. Luis Salinas for a whole year, in fact.
Right.
And
tell me, in my notes here, I'm interested to hear this story. You have an anecdote about refusing to use a line in the Pledge of Allegiance. And this was your first fight for social justice. Maybe you could tell us a bit about this, because this is fascinating. I've read from this.
I was 6 or 7. I'm not quite sure whether I was in first grade or second grade, but I was 6 or 7 years old. And my father and I could read when I was a very, very small child, but my father and I would read newspapers and magazines together, and we would listen to the news on the radio. That's how old radio.
Yeah, yeah.
No CNN, radio. And we would do that in the morning before he went to work and I went to school. We'd do that in the evening after dinner. And so I had some inkling inside my little baby brain about what was going on, but somehow or other, we were saying the Pledge of Allegiance, and I just refused to say with liberty and justice for all, because I didn't believe it. And my father had to come up to school because I got sent to the principal's office. And I just absolutely refused. And he was not happy with having to leave work and come up and rescue me. But once he figured out he asked, why won't you say it? And I said, because it doesn't exist. And he was like, you will not. He's talking to the principal, who is this, God, she must have been 100 years old. Back, little kid brains work funny. But he's telling my principal, you will not make this child do something that she finds to be that offensive. And I was offended. So I never had to say those words again, and I still don't. Don't.
So after that, you were allowed to continue on the Pledge of Allegiance as you wished. It was in your own words.
Yes. Kind of. Yes. So, and as I said, I still do that. I still will not say those final words because they're not true yet. I'm waiting for them to be true. I want them to be true.
Well, you brought up an interesting point, and I want to kind of go down this tangent for a bit. You talked about news being on the radio, and news now is available in so many different forms. But I remember the days, and I used to work in news in the days where you had 24-hour news stations, not just on cable, but on radio. You could get traffic and weather reports in the middle of the night along with your headlines. Those days seem to be gone because they're not just slanted. Now you have news agencies that are literally, one side or another nowadays. So that's all changed.
That I think those changes are not good. I think they put us in bubbles, as we keep talking about the bubbles that we're in, and we are. We only listen to that which fits with our own belief systems and our own ideas about what is true and what is not, and what is right and what is wrong. And sometimes what we think is right and wrong, those things can be so twisted so easily by mass media today. The media has become something that I never imagined it to be when I was 7 or 8 years old. So.
Yeah. When I was a young reporter, we'd have certain television stations. There was one in particular in the market. I'm not going to name them because they're not that way anymore, but you'd hold them as the bar for journalism. 60 Minutes, for example, you'd look at that as the bar for journalism. PBS, some of the journalists that were on there. And nowadays it doesn't seem to hold water because those journalists aren't around. Most of them have died by now.
Yes.
It's true. It's sad, but they're not here, unfortunately, with us.
That's a problem with getting old.
Yeah, that is. Yeah. You also say sociology is exciting, useful, and fascinating. Maybe you could tell us a bit about that. For students who may be looking to get into sociology, what would be your elevator pitch for them?
We study every possible aspect of human behavior. And what I tell my students on the first day of class, if we haven't studied it, it's because we haven't thought of it yet. Most recently, in fact, one of the most recent things that we've started in sociology is the sociology of humans and pets. We are probably the only species on the planet that has pets, that takes in things that are not our species and treats them as if they are part of our family. And we've been working with animals for thousands upon thousands of years. And now we are just starting to be the very beginning of looking at why, how, what those things mean, what they mean for a greater society. So I think that's interesting, but we study everything from cannibalism to people with pets,
right?
And everything in between. We do. I mean, it runs the gamut of every possible aspect of society. We are the scientific study of human behavior in groups. So that makes us different from any of the other social sciences, in that, particularly from psychology, because that's individual human behavior, and we're looking at little tiny groups from 2 people to whole planets. So, or a planet.
I like to chime in real quick, Todd, because as a former HCC student, I actually did take a sociology course during my time at HCC and even in high school. And I really enjoyed it because the fact that there's so much to learn from groups that you don't think about, because you do stay in this tiny little bubble, that you kind of forget about, you know, what other even cultures. I mean, if you want to go into anthropology as well, but like what other groups are doing and what they believe in, and how different they are from one another. So to be a better, well-rounded individual, it's to your advantage to take a course such as sociology, to just, you know, one, to think critically, to analyze, and to just, like I said, be an overall well-rounded individual.
I have students constantly saying, why didn't I ever know about this before? Well, you do now. So work with it, because that's what it's all about. The whole well-roundedness is thank you for that plug.
There's proof right there. Brittany, thank you. Ruth, we appreciate you being on the show. We want to wish you the best of luck, and I look forward to seeing you again. We're also going to put a link in our social media post for the webinar that you guys had yesterday, so that folks can check that out as to what happened as well. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ruth. We're going to move on to Dr. Cheryl McCallum. Once again, thank you for joining us on the show. We were talking before the show went on the air, but because of the pandemic, you guys have had to close your doors physically at the Children's Museum recently?
We have, yes. So we reopened the doors in June, and we operated June, July, and August. And then at the end of the summer, we closed our doors again. So, you know, that for us is related to our mission for the Houston community. You know, we really want to support the learning of children, and, you know, learning within the contexts, you know, to Ruth's point, within the groups that children are involved in. So they're with their families right now, and they're, you know, with their school right now, whether or not it's a learning pod, or they're in the classroom physically, or they're at home learning. And so that's the support that we're providing right now through a new program called All-Time Access.
And tell us about that, because I know since the shutdown started, you guys have been very active in social media, on your website, and I believe your YouTube channel as well.
Definitely. So since the shutdown started mid-March, I don't know exactly what the numbers are now, but our educators, of whom we have about 20 on staff, who work in our outreach as well as in our galleries, they had produced around 600 video introductory conceptual kind of engagements for children, most of which were things that kids could join into to do experiments or investigations in their home environments. And, you know, across that time, we had over 5 million views on these things that we had produced. And so it was really just wonderfully eye-opening to us that we could so quickly move into that environment and shift the work that we do with families in that way. So across, like, from March through August, we learned a lot about how our organization can operate in this virtual realm. And because of that learning and the feedback that we got from families, which was just tremendous, we decided that the all-time access move was what we needed to make going into the fall, because we knew several things from families that we had heard, across those months were things like, the fact that they were having difficulty getting connected into their schools, that their children were having a hard time remaining motivated to do as much time and learning online as they had to. And they really were looking for help in keeping their kiddos motivated. And then also, what can they do with their kiddos that's, quote, unplugged, where, they're online all the time. They need something when they finish their school day that they can do that's very hands-on and engaging, but doesn't absolutely require a computer to be able to do it. And so all-time access gives a variety of options for both families and schools to pursue things that will really help inspire kids' learning.
And what's been the response? I know you mentioned it a bit. You learned a lot since over the summer months, but what's been the response so far from the viewers who are picking up these broadcasts?
Well, it's pretty tremendous. I'll give you one example. So back in March, we immediately launched a program called My Projects Live, and they are online courses. They're discrete, but they can also be done in series. And so each one teaches kids how to use a free software platform called Tinkercad. It's a computer-aided design system that kiddos 8 and up can really grab hold of really very quickly and learn how to use. And so since the pandemic started, we've been offering about 3 of those courses a week, sorry, not a day. And they are themed. So, once a kiddo learns how to use Tinkercad, we've done things like design roller coasters. This week, I was going to say tomorrow, I'm peeking at my screen next to me. We're doing, things related to designing blood cells and pumpkin patches and that kind of thing. So they're Halloween themed right now, but they change every week. And so we have kiddos who have joined us across these months, and they just keep doing the workshops with us. And the wonderful thing is that right now, through funding from Chevron, they're free. Yeah. So, anybody can sign up and register for these things that are typically posted on our website 3 or 4 days in advance, and do it. So, lots of families have given us that kind of feedback. Another story that I'll tell is that from the virtual engagements that our educators have done, I have a colleague friend at HISD whose daughter has been using these things. So her daughter's about 10 years old. And so she said, Cheryl, I don't get it. I really don't get it. Sloan likes this activity that your science people did called Paper Mountain. And she keeps coming back to me and asking me for pieces of paper and crumbling them up and drawing on them and pouring water on them. And she wants to do it over and over again. Well, it's a simple experiment about watersheds and the water cycle that our educator was trying to explain for kids, but they could do it over and over and over with these simple materials and get unique results every time and begin to develop patterns of understanding how watersheds work, in the world around us. So, it's that kind of feedback. One other thing that I'll say is that I have a colleague who works at UT Health, and she partners with us in some of our parent engagement programming. And she said with her little ones, what's really helped her about the engagements that we've been providing is that a lot of what the kids are doing with school, their parents have to be sitting close to them and helping them all the time, and it really affects the whole dynamic of work life. And she said some of the things that we're offering, particularly our story times, she has such a high level of trust in the museum that she knows that she can bring those up onto the computer, and then her kids can watch through our YouTube playlist of story times, and that she feels entirely comfortable with them doing that without too much supervision on her part.
Well, I want to ask you, because I know you guys are very active around the Halloween season, and I always enjoyed seeing the pictures of the kids and their costumes coming to the museum. How are you guys going to be doing things to celebrate Halloween and get kids involved, being that we're all virtual now?
Well, Halloween with the Children's Museum this year is gross-topia. So everything that we're doing is gross. As a matter of fact, this week we have a Wonder Week of programming going on that is creepy concoctions. And so that's funded by our sponsors, Flint Hills Resources. And so we're doing all kinds of experiments that are related to gross things that you might find around the Halloween timeframe. So one of the things that kids can do is make snot, which, you know, kind of gross, but they love it. So we have opportunities for them to, you know, explore the chemistry around Halloween ghoulishness.
Well, when I was a kid, we had those snot, but it was called slime, and it came in a little garbage can, and we used to buy that stuff. It probably was toxic, and we probably weren't supposed to be playing with it, but we loved it back then.
Well, you know, that's one of the things that kids are making to make their snot. And as a matter of fact, they can make different kinds of snot and compare it. Lots of gross stuff that kids love.
It's fascinating, though, because we used to think the slime was the best thing going, you know. Are there any plans as you move forward into the holiday season on reopening the museum? Is it too soon to tell right now? I mean, we are going into flu season, so I know there's a lot of uncertainty. Where are you guys with that?
Yeah, it is too soon to tell, Todd. So one of the things that we're using as a measure for when we're able to reopen is when families are really ready to come back out in public venues like ours. So even with all of the measures that we put in place and the great feedback that we got from families, we just, you know, there are not enough people who are ready to come out to venues like ours. And so we're looking forward to the measures that are going to be put in place, vaccine being, you know, kind of broadly distributed. And so I think as the months move on, we'll get a better picture of what that might look like for us. We're very much hoping to be able to open at some point in the spring, but that's, you know, still an unknown to us so far.
Dr. McCallum, we wish you the best of luck, and we always enjoy having y'all on the show right here. Say hello to Henry Yao. I used to work with him years ago back in the news industry. So
I will say hello to Henry. Thank you so much, Todd and Brittany. Appreciate you hosting us today.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to move on to Brittany Pacheco talking about our HCC news and information. One of the things, Brittany, is something that's going on today, right after the show.
Yeah, apparently it might be a good companion to snot. Just kidding. I'm talking about coffee. I don't drink coffee. I don't like coffee. I like the smell of it, but the whole snot thing just kind of like, oh, okay. Anyway, moving on. Now we have our
slime. Were you too young? Was it around when you were a kid?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. I'm a 90s child.
Came in the garbage pail. Yeah.
Yeah, I was. Yeah. I mean, Nickelodeon, they had the slime, you know.
No, this was like a decade or so before.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, this was, yeah.
But everything retro comes back every about 10 years.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Yeah.
Did you have Stretch Armstrong? Did you remember that? Did you know him?
I vaguely remember. Yeah, okay. I vaguely. Yeah.
Nathan, our director, probably remembers Stretch Armstrong, but
probably. That's a whole other generation right there.
Yeah.
But our HCC virtual coffee breaks are happening today at 11 a.m. This is in conjunction with Janet May, who's our Chief Human Resource Officer, and she will be joined by Dr. Erica Stevens, who's the English Faculty Co-Chair for the Bedichek Orman Auction Committee. Now, be sure to grab your coffee, no snot included, that's kind of gross, to continue chatting and adapting again with Janet May. Check your emails for the registration link. You would want to search coffee breaks in your inbox search engine.
And, you know, I'm checking my calendar, Brittany. I think a week from today. Yeah, it's a week from today. Guess what? They're going to have some special guests on Janet May's show.
I wonder who that could be, Todd.
I know you'll be there. I'll be there. Hey, we always love Join Janet. So we'll announce that next week, but make plans on it a week from today. Faculty is making music again. Don't miss the Visual and Performing Arts Center of Excellence Fall 2020 Music Faculty Recital. Those are always fun. This includes them sharing a variety of instrumentals and vocals on YouTube. You'll hear everything from various serious classical music to hundreds of years ago to cool jazz improvisation and compositions of the 21st century. They're all across the board there with their faculty-inspired compositions. So make sure you tune in Friday, October 23rd, 3:15 to 4 p.m. It's free, no registrations required. We'll have the link in the social media post for the show. Northwest Library Discovery Days, they're about to celebrate Halloween, Brittany.
They are. So first, they're going to host a drawing spooky, scary skeletons and a live demonstration on how to draw a skeleton, paying attention to the anatomy, and then decorating it for the season. So that's very apropos. That's happening Friday, tomorrow at 3. And then they're going to have a monster mash, illustration and drawing that will help participants learn how to draw monsters during this online edition. Now that's happening next Friday, the 27th, again at 3. Registration is required for both of these events. You can go to library.hccs.edu/discovery days.
There you go. Little monster mash for you.
Oh man, that brings back so many childhood memories at my aunt's house with my cousins. Like, that's wow.
What a great song. Yeah, what a great song. Let's go continuing education. Continuing ed classes from accounting to welding. HCC School of Continuing Education has launched their classes to start the week and weekly and monthly. Check out their schedules. All of them you can find at hccs.edu/CE. Real easy to find them. Rec sports, yeah, they're happening, and twerk fitness is back.
Yeah, Twerk Fitness is back with the V Sisters and probably Todd Duplantis. You guys need to go check it out to see if he's there showing you how to twerk. It is a fun and free fitness. Oh my gosh, Todd. It's a fun and free fitness event. Again, Twerk Fitness hosts with the V Sisters. You can email christian.andrews@hccs.edu with the subject line twerk in order to register. You can also visit the website hccs.edu/sports.
So we are running out of time. Real quickly, Northwest Life Hacking 101, they're having an event involving LinkedIn, how to navigate and brand yourself, noon Tuesday, October 27th. We'll have the information in the social media post for the show. Outdoor Wi-Fi zones, they're available, Brittany, and you can go to hccs.edu/outdoor Wi-Fi for more information. So tomorrow's show, what do we got going on?
Tomorrow, Friday, Dr. Katrina A. Gary Forte will join us to talk about next week's presentation on the effects of alcohol and drugs among college students. This is a very important topic, of course. She is a faculty practicum coordinator for HCC's Human Services Technology Department, which is joining forces with our counseling department. So don't miss out on that. And then also, Todd, we're going to be joined by our resident poet, but he's also our college operations officer for HCC Northeast, Dr. Jimmy Adams, and he's going to share with us another perspective that only he can provide.
It's always fun when Dr. Adams is on the show every Friday. It's a great way to start the weekend. You've got an announcement tomorrow?
I've got an announcement tomorrow, but you guys have to join us tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Here live on Facebook. You can see it later on our YouTube channel. That's our situation I was talking about earlier. YouTube situation. So be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram and YouTube. Join us tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. For Up to the Minute, Todd.
That's right. We'll be here tomorrow. Thank you for being here today. We'll see you live 10 a.m.